altogether. I checked with my colleagues from other neighborhoods, and they were seeing the same thing. So in 1969, I created a task force made up of prominent leaders in the city: legislators, attorneys, academics, educators, and parents, to first shine a light on this problem, but more importantly, to take corrective action toward a systemic change. We called it the Task Force on Children Out of School. That is how Massachusetts Advocates for Children began.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jacqueline Bowman and Carlos Rojas Alvarez.
Good evening and welcome to MAC's 50th anniversary celebration. We are thrilled to lead you through MAC's journey over the last 50 years to becoming a leading children's advocacy organization in the state.
We began this evening with the voice of UB Jones, MAC's founder. Okay. And the first thing we'll share with you is that UB Jones's task force did its job. Their report revealed that 10,000 children were being excluded from the Boston Public Schools for one reason or another.
The majority of these children were immigrants from diverse cultures and children with a first language other than English, children like me. Other children were denied enrollment or made to leave school, deemed unteachable due to physical, cognitive, or mental health disabilities. And girls who had attended school with their peers all their lives were kicked out simply because they had become pregnant.
The task force report changed the landscape of education in Massachusetts and ultimately the nation, because it immediately morphed into a strong, collaborative grassroots movement to reform education in Massachusetts as we knew it. As the task force grew, it became Massachusetts Advocates for Children, and the focus on children excluded from school grew into three major interrelated areas of advocacy work that have continued to this day: advocating for children with disabilities, creating safe and supportive school cultures, and shaping racially and culturally equitable school systems. We'll be walking you through the three themes throughout this evening.
The neurologist said, you know, if you're planning to have other children and you want a normal life, maybe you should institutionalize them.
The school committee member said, we do not educate a vegetable.
She's not going to be able to read, she's not going to be able to do many things, she's not going to be able to live independently.
We had families, parents particularly, who came to talk with social workers about the fact that their children were being bounced out of the Boston public school system. The school system was saying that the youngster was too retarded, too disturbed.
The late 1960s were alive with social change. The civil rights movement was well underway. President Nixon had just narrowly won the presidency of a divided nation, and disability advocates had turned their attention to realizing the right to education for all children. Here in Massachusetts, sparked by the task force's groundbreaking report, the disability community was mobilizing for change.
State Representative Michael Daley, a member of UB's task force, looked to the legislative process to create a new right to education for children with disabilities. Representative Daley joined forces with attorneys Bob Crabtree and Larry Cohen to draft a special education legislation that would become known as Chapter 766. This revolutionary legislation would guarantee education as a right, not as a privilege, for all young people with disabilities in the state. It represented a massive shift in the Commonwealth's approach to public education. In 1972, With Mac and our first executive director, Larry Brown, leading the charge, the bill was signed into law.
For the first time in the history of this country, a law was on the books stating that schools couldn't deny a child an education simply because they had a disability. That law remains one of Mac's proudest accomplishments. That state law served as the model for the federal IDEA Act, which brought that right to children nationwide just 3 years later. But the fight wasn't over. Mac knew that without vigilant advocacy, civil rights laws are not worth the paper they're written on.
When Tom Miller joined Mac's team in 1975, he led Mac's class action lawsuit against the Boston Public Schools over non-compliance with Chapter 766, and he won. Mac's message was clear. In Mac, children with disabilities had a strong advocate in their corner. In the 90s, Mac faced another setback. School districts were trying to roll back many of the rights included under Chapter 766. Mac got to work organizing parents, students, and educators across the state in order to fight these changes and proactively create new protections.
The parent advocates involved in those efforts inspired Mac, and they continue to help and inspire us today. Mac's advocacy always begins with the parent voices on our helpline and our communities. Let's hear from Salima about how Mac's Helpline and Autism Center staff helped her son.
He's almost 9 years old and he's on the autism spectrum. He's lovely and he's so caring, and I love him so much. I reached out to Mac when I realized that I was getting to a dead end with my school district. Mac has a huge role in empowering parents. They also has fostered a sense of, advocacy within me, and they have empowered me, and I'm sure they would have. I'm sure they empowered other parents too. I owe Mac so much, as I think many parents do. I think that phone call that I made to Mac on that particular day where all the doors were closed and where I felt hopeless, reaching out to them was the best thing that I've ever done, increasing his just future chances, his life chances, is all related to a phone call.
You can probably guess what's coming next. Helpline stories don't end when we hang up the phone. As many of you know, many youth with disabilities face a dead end when they exit special education at the age of 22. They're frequently denied the supports and services necessary to live and work independently in the community. Over the last few years, Mac has partnered with youth with disabilities to bring their concerns about their transition to adulthood, including college preparation, to the State House. Because of those efforts, students with intellectual disabilities and autism are now included in half of the state's colleges and universities. In 2012, Mac established the Young Adult Leaders Fellowship for young adults with intellectual disabilities and autism. We'll let former Young Adult Leader Fellow Maximo Pimentel take it from here.
First of all, going to college was a dream to me, and that dream was far from coming true because when I was born with a lot of health issues. I had to do a lot of surgeries to survive. And back in my country when I was 8 years old, I didn't know how to read or write in my own language. when I came to the United States, things were kind of difficult for me, but thanks to my parents, teachers, and also the opportunity of being in the Macy program at Roxbury Community College, that dream came true. Now I am studying at Bunker Hill. I'm trying to keep my GPA up so I could get better grades. I would recommend MAC to other students because it's a wonderful opportunity and you grow as a person being here. Coming from where I'm coming from, I have made it really, really far.
Let's get Maximo. Maximo's experience as an immigrant is not unique. Throughout the years, MAC has recognized that many children and young adults with disabilities live at the intersection of multiple systems of oppression, whether they're people of color, immigrants, or economically disadvantaged. That's why MAC is exploring and exposing the impact of racial disparities in supports for children with disabilities, including autism in the state. And the statistics are staggering. Over half of Black children with autism in this state are in segregated classrooms, double the rate for white children with autism. And more than 40% of Hispanic children with autism are segregated from their non-disabled peers.
We know that it's not enough to simply get children into school or inclusive classrooms. It's critical that our schools are safe, supportive environments where all students' needs are met. This leads us into our next theme.
In the 90s, stories from MAC's Helpline and major studies uncovered a disturbing truth. More children than we ever imagined were being abused, exposed to violence, or facing other extreme adversities. The resulting trauma was affecting children's ability to learn, and schools were punishing behaviors that psychologists understood as trauma responses, rather than providing the needed social emotional support.
MAC jumped into action and published its now classic studies of the impact of trauma in schools, ultimately launching the Trauma and Learning Policy Initiative, or TLPI. This is the project that really cemented my own personal relationship with MAC. As an advocate for children in the child welfare system, as well as an advocate for victims and survivors of domestic violence, this project brought together all of those things that I felt very personally passionate about. In 2014, TLPI and its allies successfully advocated for the passage of the Safe and Supportive Schools Framework Law and encouraging schools to promote the behavioral health of their students and become trauma-sensitive communities where all children can learn. Let's take a look inside of the trauma-sensitive school.
It was clear that the staff was ready to move forward towards becoming a trauma-sensitive school, and teachers are ready to change their mindset about the way students behave, why they behave in those ways, and what we can do to help them improve their behavior as opposed to strictly punishing students for their behavior.
I had asked the staff members if there was anyone that would like to join me in creating a safe and supportive school team to please let me know. And I was really surprised by the number of staff that emailed back and said they wanted to be part of it.
When I realized that the way that we have been working with children since I started school had to change. When I first started teaching, everyone had to sit in rows. There were no small groups. And if you had a quiet classroom, you had a good classroom. There was no such thing as productive noise. Everything was discipline, discipline, discipline.
One thing that we've learned is that if a child isn't ready to learn, it doesn't matter what lesson you have or what materials you have or how fantastically you present it. They're not ready, they're not ready. And so what we do is we work very hard to make sure our children come in every day and that they're greeted, they're welcomed, and they realize that school is a safe place for them.
TLPI's work has garnered worldwide acclaim, setting the groundwork for a national movement to transform school communities.
During the same period, a growing body of research has exposed the existence of a school-to-prison pipeline for students of color and students with disabilities. At the center of this disturbing trend, students as young as preschool are suspended or expelled from school for minor offenses. Older students are being arrested for school-based infractions, setting them on a track that greatly increases the likelihood that they will drop out of school. And especially for young men of color, failure to achieve a high school diploma in turn increases the likelihood that they will end up eventually experiencing incarceration. Mac's experience tells us that the school-to-prison pipeline crisis is just the next chapter in a history of attempts to deny children of color and children with disabilities their right to an education.
In 2012, Mac addressed this crisis by successfully advocating for Chapter 222 with the help of State Representative Alice Wolf. Chapter 222 made school exclusion the last resort in school discipline for all but the most serious offenses. And when suspension does occur, schools must provide students the academic support necessary to keep them from falling behind in their studies.
Most importantly, Chapter 222 has represented a shift toward restorative justice and social-emotional support of students rather than punishment and exclusion. Chapter 222 is deeply personal for me too. As a high school student and advocate at Youth on Board, I partnered with Mac and staff attorneys like Tom Mila to pass Chapter 222 and end the school-to-prison pipeline. Mac's commitment to authentic partnerships with students like me, parents, and community is one of the many reasons why I'm so proud to serve on the board today. As always, Mac is collaborating with students and families and other advocates to vigilantly monitor the implementation of Chapter 222 and ensure that children won't fall victim to this latest iteration of school segregation. Woven throughout Mac's history and inherent in all the issues Mac sees facing children today is the vicious and persistent impact of systemic racism on our children. As we mentioned at the start of the evening, the largest group of children UB's task force saw being excluded from school were English language learners. As the immigrant population continues to increase in these politically charged times, so does the discrimination against them. But Mac always has and always will stand in their corner.
Mac's advocacy leadership led to the first bilingual education law in the nation, passed in 1971. Before that, the notion of English as a second language classes was completely unheard of. Kids who spoke Spanish or another language with their families were forced to stay home, sending the damaging message that their language and culture had no value. Discrimination against immigrant children and children of color continues today, but Mac is on the case.
Recognizing the unique barriers that Latino and immigrant families face, Mac helped form a parent group in Lawrence for Latino parents of children with autism. The parent group meets regularly for Know Your Rights trainings related to special education protections. Partnering with these parent advocates, Mac has helped improve the Lawrence schools for all children with disabilities. Out of that group, Mac created Proyecto Acceso a la Educación Especial, or Project Access to Special Education, which provides case advocacy and training for Latino families and their children. Today, Proyecto Acceso is exploring ways to make important legal knowledge accessible to parents advocating for their children, for example, through Mac's new video series. Many parents still don't know that all children in this country have the right to a free public education, including special education, regardless of immigration status.
In 1996, Mac launched the Mobilization for Equity Project to work towards equity for students facing language or racial discrimination. The project was renamed the Boston School Reform Project in 2012 under now City Councilor Kim Janey's leadership. Let's hear it.
Over the years at MAC, I've been very proud of the work that we did, me and my team. I want to shout out people like John Mudd and Samuel Hurtado. We really tried to engage families, young people in their own education as true partners advocating for systems change. It is because of the work at MAC that we see a deputy level position in charge of family and community engagement in the Boston Public Schools. Because of the work at MAC, we had positions created at the school level to support community engagement and family participation. It is because of the work of MAC that we have a school discipline law impacting so many children across the Commonwealth to make sure that we are eliminating the school to prison pipeline. It is because of the work of MAC that we have more scrutiny and supports for English language learners in our city of Boston and throughout the Commonwealth. It is because of the work of MAC we've expanded dual language opportunities for families here in Boston. Now more than ever, given what is happening across our country, we need for local communities to step up. Now more than ever, we've got to tackle racism, institutional structural racism, and how that impacts our schools. We've got to fight back and insist that all children receive the supports and services that they need. That is why MAC is so important, and that is why we need to make sure that over the next 50 years that MAC has the resources it needs to fight for our young people here in our Commonwealth.
Today's children give us hope for that vision and for the future. Now let's wrap it up with our founder, UB Jones, and a very satisfied client. Take a look.
MAC has always been guided by the powerful idea that through the voice of a child, the heart of a parent, a caring community, and the pursuit of effective laws, we'll have a day when all children, regardless of their race, their special needs, will have an opportunity to succeed.
Realmente me siento sumamente satisfecha de
Truly, I feel incredibly satisfied by the services that we've been given.
Un mejor servicio ahora.
Since we got involved with MAC, he's receiving great services. Truly, we are happy. He's socializing. He's able to speak. He understands everything that I tell him. He has changed 100% since he's been in these programs.
A powerful story from one of MAC's many happy clients. As we move from MAC's birth to the height of the civil rights movement to a perilous future in an uncertain political time, today's children and our many supporters here in this room and across the state give us hope. I'd now like to introduce Boston City Councilor Kim Janey, who will present our proclamation.
I still don't have my glasses. So I want to know what it says. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You can do better than that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Janey, and I have the pleasure of serving as a Boston City Councilor. I am finishing up my first term, but before that, I worked at Mass Advocates for Children for 17 years with my amazing team. You heard me mention them. I'm going to shout them out again. That's John Mudd right there and Samuel Hurtado, who serves as my chief of staff and helps me stay on track. I don't know why you told me to bring my glasses up here. Thank you. Wonderful. I also want to take just this opportunity, and I'm not going to talk long because Jerry knows I hate a talky program, but I do want to shout out Jerry for his amazing leadership over the years. Please give Jerry. acknowledge my amazing team of senior managers that I worked with. Julia, Susan, Tom, and Janine are here. Shout them out. Of course, our new ED, Kevin, certainly the board members, and everyone here in the room who do so much every single day to take care of our children in the Commonwealth and make sure that MAC has the resources that it needs. So, on behalf of the Boston City Council, this is an official resolution, and it says, be it resolved that the Boston City Council extended its congratulations to Massachusetts Advocates for Children in recognition of its 50th anniversary. And be it further resolved that the Boston City Council extends its best wishes for continued success over the next 50 years, and that this resolution be duly signed by the President of the Boston City Council and attested to, and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the City of Boston. And it is signed by the President of the Boston City Council, the Clerk, and myself as the City Councilor offering the resolution. So congratulations for an amazing 50 years for all of you. And let's hope that we don't need MAC in 50 years. Let's hope that we finally get it together and take care of the children in this Commonwealth. So thank you so much. We're going to hear from amazing children here.
Thank you, Kim. I now have the pleasure of introducing our live performance for the Boston Children's Chorus. In addition to founding MAC in 1969, UBI also founded the Boston Children's Chorus in 2003. The Children's Chorus mission is to harness the power of music to connect Boston's diverse communities, cultivate empathy, and inspire social inquiry. We are so excited to welcome our sister organization, the Boston Children's Chorus, here tonight for a live performance. Please enjoy.
Into the light
for that beautiful performance. And I now have the honor of introducing MAC's founder, UB Jones. UB's legendary impact on child advocacy includes founding both MAC and the Boston Children's Chorus, and forming, rebuilding, or leading more than 30 other community organizations throughout his career. Please welcome UB to the stage.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to celebrate Mass Advocates for Children's 50 years of service to children in the Commonwealth. Next, I thank the singers of the Boston Children's Chorus for performing. They did not perform here merely to entertain you. They came to remind all of us who care about the welfare of children that we should use every possible means, even music, to help young people prosper and have decent life chances. At BCC, we are very pleased that 450 singers in 13 choirs tell us that they treasure being in a loving choral community that provides them with a safe space to talk about all the things that they care about. Matters of race, gender, sexual orientation, mass incarceration, environmental justice, etc., etc. And they also tell us that they basically get shut down in schools when they want to talk about these matters. So BCC uses the power of singing to promote social healing, pursuit of social justice, and authentic social integration all across the divides in this society. This is why the Boston Children's Chorus is here tonight. We all should know that we are very fortunate to have one of the most effective statewide child advocacy organizations in the nation, named the Massachusetts Advocates for Children in this Commonwealth. This is not just an assertion, it is a fact. MAC for 50 years has served as a model for other child advocacy organizations in the nation. It provided the inspiration for Marian Wright Edelman to found the Children's Defense Fund, which is a child advocacy powerhouse. MAC has carried out its mission to make sure that children with disabilities and English language challenges are educated within the mainstream of schooling. It has held governmental officials accountable for its policies and funding decisions. Its advocacy for children has been unrelenting. Throughout its long history, MAC has had smart, dedicated board members, and we thank them tonight. It has possessed smart, talented, and compassionate staff members who never sat idly by and let school systems marginalize children with disabilities or other special needs. If they did so, they were the targets of the staff's moral fury. If necessary, they knew how to play rough, but fair. Many of them, like Julia Landau and Susan Cole and Kim Janey, now carrying the work forward at the Boston City Hall, have worked at MAC for over 20 years. I admire them greatly. Actually, I love them for who they are and what they do. While we are here tonight, in a congratulatory moment. None of us can be in a posture of self-satisfaction because there is too much work left to do. In a country with an outrageous level of childhood poverty, there is much more work to do. In our communities where students come to school traumatized because of violence and domestic abuse, there is much more work to do. For the more than 4,000 Boston students who are homeless and come to school from distant shelters and motels, there is more work to do. For immigrant children struggling to get a hand up and who deserve support, loving support, at a time when they are being demonized by high public officials, there is much, much more work to do. However, this is no time to wallow in despair and feel sorry for ourselves. This is a time to stand up and fight for the rights and needs of our children like never before. Yes, we celebrate tonight, but tomorrow we go back to work because vulnerable children and their parents are counting on us. I urge you to support MAC in any way that you can. Shortly, Charlie Rose will give you an opportunity to do so. MAC is the most efficient and effective nonprofit that I have ever been associated with. And as you know, I have been involved with the founding and leadership of at least 25 nonprofit organizations during my 60-plus years in the Boston region. You cannot make a better investment. Thank you tonight for being here. And now I give you the chair of MAC's board, Eileen Haggard.
Thank you, Hubie. We'd now like to take this moment to recognize and thank Jerry Mogul for his 16 years of dedicated service to MAC. Jerry's tenure at MAC came with many challenges and many successes. Throughout his 16 years here, Jerry's commitment to educational opportunity for all was central to his work. From his role in leading MAC's efforts to expand employment and higher education opportunities for older youth with disabilities, to his commitment to ensuring that diverse student voices are always heard, it is largely because of Jerry's steadfast leadership that MAC has been able to transform so many lives. Speaking for myself, the staff, and the entire board, it has been a true privilege to serve MAC's mission together with Jerry. Jerry, it is our honor to present you with a gift as a small token of our thanks for your dedication and service to MAC.
This is better. Okay. Yeah. What can I say? It's been an incredible ride. Eileen, thank you for the very warm and generous introduction. And in listening and watching the incredible story of all that MAC has done over the past 50 years. And that was an amazing slideshow. I want people to really, acknowledge that people really worked hard on putting that together. Kevin did it, and Lilia, and Chris, and many folks put that together. Thank you very much for doing that. It's a real keepsake for all of us. And we'll look back maybe 50 years from now. Okay? Maybe not. For 100. Okay. Oh, all right. Carry away. So, I continue to be amazed and proud of how MAC's impact far exceeds its relatively small footprint. We're a small organization, but as you said, we're incredibly potent and powerful. And it doesn't just happen by itself. So let me tell you how that happens. Let me tell you how it happens while, at the same time, I express my gratitude. It has been a privilege and an honor for me to serve as your executive director for these last 16 years. And of course, my first thanks go to Yubi for his vision that brought injustice out of the shadows and for his strategic brilliance in overcoming that injustice. And while Yubi will be the first to acknowledge that early in his career, he stood on the shoulders of giants, he also needed to have partners to execute that vision and strategy. And to that, I offer you Larry Brown. Larry? Larry wrote MAC's first publication, The Way to Go to School, and then became MAC's first executive director. Yubi and Larry set in motion the template for MAC's success: fierce and independent advocacy. And as you heard Yubi tonight, I just felt that fierceness is just so there, Yubi. And I just can't thank you enough for that initial spark and fire that you gave to MAC that has continued for all these years, for all of us. Fierce and independent advocacy tempered by the knowledge that successful advocacy is never complete, that it is a marathon and a lifelong endeavor. Yubi served as MAC's first board chair and has continued to be MAC's champion to this day, for which we are all grateful. MAC's board, of course, has evolved over time, but has continued to be a source of great strength, support, vision, and accountability. I personally want to thank my board chairs, Steve Rosenfeld, who hired me back in 2003. Steve, I think you're here. Yes? Eileen Haggard and Gordon Crafton Strong, and Matt Iverson and D.L.A. Piper, each of whom in their own way provided such great support to me and leadership to the organization. Please stand, the three of you and all of MAC board members, past and present. There's some of you here, like Troy and Michael Linder, Many of you here tonight are MAC supporters in many ways. You are our donors, grant funders, or advocacy colleagues and partners. Some of you are loyal donors and supporters who have been by our side so generously for years and years. And to you, I can't offer enough thanks for believing in our mission and having confidence in our work every step of the way. And some of you are relatively new donors and supporters. And to you, I want to welcome you, and I hope that MAC will earn your long-term support and friendship too. Finally, my most humble gratitude extends to the MAC staff. This is kind of like being like your family in so many ways. You've kind of lived with for so many years. It's the day-to-day stuff. And so I just want to start by first, in the context of celebrating 50 years, as you said, and I'll say it again, there are two people who have been at MAC for more than half of that 50 years, and I want them to stand up, Susan Cole and Julia Lamb. They never listened to me back then. It's like, you know, people say it's like herding cats. No, I said it's like herding lions and tigers. Why should tonight be any different? All of you, senior staff level, have been a highly visible and essential face of MAC, providing extraordinary leadership. You have made the world a better place through new laws, policies, and practices that include and give hope to those children who face overwhelming odds in their struggles to be seen and heard in the world. I have learned so much from you, and I'm proud to have been your colleague all these years. And I know that many in this room share the sentiments. So, I'd like all MAC staff now to stand up, because all of you are part of the family that I have just been so much a part of all these years. So all of MAC staff, past and present, please stand up. Great pleasure to introduce MAC's new Executive Director, Kevin Murray. In the short time I've gotten to know Kevin, as we execute the leadership transition, I've been so impressed by his vision, his passion, his management skills, his energy, and his humble but firm leadership approach. Kevin is absolutely the right fit to bring MAC forward into the next 50 years. I could not be happier than to pass the torch, this microphone.
Good evening, everybody. What else could there be to say, really? But I'm expected to say something, so here I am. What I'll say, first of all, is that I just couldn't be more excited to be standing before you tonight as the still new Executive Director of Massachusetts Advocates for Children. I thank all of you for your presence here tonight and for the opportunity you've given me to be part of this amazing organization. I want to begin by echoing what's been said here a lot tonight and give thanks to staff, interns, volunteers, fellows, and the board of MAC for the support and confidence you've shown to me since I first walked through the door at 25 Kingston Street. I've had the privilege to work with a lot of great organizations over the years, but I can assure you tonight that I have never worked with a more talented and committed group of people than those who make MAC tick. I defy you to show me another group who accomplishes so much with so little in the way of resources. Seriously. I also want to thank Jerry Mogul, who's shown great generosity and endless patience in his approach to our mutual transition. And I cannot, of course, stand before you tonight without recognizing Hubie Jones, whose genius, passion, and burning impatience gave flight to MAC 50 years ago. It's hard for me to think about standing on anybody's shoulders, Hubie, but you'll inspire me every day that I'm in this job. Thank you. But I come not to praise MAC, I come to share my excitement about its future and to invite, to encourage, and maybe even cajole you a little bit to be part of that future. As we've seen here tonight, MAC has accomplished great things over 50 years. We might point to 3 pillars of that success. 1, the uncompromising protection and advancement of the rights of disabled children and young people. 2, the reimagination of schools as safe and supportive communities, providing quality education to all in ways that are sensitive to the trauma that is all too often present in the lives of students. And 3, a tireless commitment to sabotage the school-to-prison pipeline by keeping children in schools. Those are 3 pillars that reflect our history, and they will continue to reflect what we do in the future. But tonight, I'm here to say that we're announcing a 4th area of focus, a 4th pillar, a 4th area of achievement for MAC over the next years. Since its founding, we're excited to commit ourselves to this fourth pillar. Since its founding, MAC has done work that recognized the vulnerability of immigrant children and the need to take special steps to protect the education rights of those children. The Commonwealth's first bilingual education law, as you've seen, was in part a product of that recognition. Since then, MAC has continued to carry out a variety of programs designed to advance and protect the education rights of immigrant children and families. For example, we've been at the forefront of the fight for new laws to ensure that there'll be qualified interpreters in schools. We are doing, but the times demand that we do more. We're excited to commit ourselves to strengthen these programs and become more accountable to immigrant communities for support of the education rights of their children. This will require new partnerships and new organizational capacities, leading to a deeper understanding of the ways immigrant communities understand the threats to the rights of their children. Such a commitment will stretch MAC in many ways, but don't we all need to stretch a little bit at a time when our country has all but declared war on immigrants and seems more capable of putting immigrant children into detention than into safe and supportive schools? So it is that we envision an organization now sustained by 4 tightly connected and mutually reinforcing pillars of activity. But what provides the substance of the connection between those pillars? What will keep the pillars from toppling in the face of the strong winds that they're bound to encounter? After careful consideration of its strategy, MAC has concluded that it is through a deepening of our efforts to develop a racial equity perspective on our work that we can strengthen the connections among our programs and address the most powerful obstacles to our success. I cannot do this perspective justice here, but I must introduce it to you all. A racial equity perspective will never cause us to turn away from protecting the education rights of any group of children, but it might draw our attention to the statistics you saw earlier tonight, the inconvenient truth that while 24% of white children with autism are in substantially separate classrooms, that's itself an unacceptable number. 51% of black children with autism are isolated in such classrooms. We must speak carefully about progress in the face of such disparity. And the data also show that black boys with disabilities, schooled in segregated environments, are much more likely to be excluded from school for disciplinary reasons. We have yet to take on the full implications of examining our work in this way, but with your help, we take them on, we will. The potential of such thinking to transform and strengthen this organization is apparent to us all. In conclusion, let me say that our future promises continuity because it rests proudly on relationships, commitments, and capacities built over 50 years of work that you and people like you have made possible. But our future also promises change as we imagine new possibilities in a world changing in exciting and yes, dangerous ways. I close thanking you for all you have done to write the story we have told tonight and inviting you to step forward and walk with us as we do our part to write the next story.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome. We're psyched to have you. Jerry, congratulations. I'd like to offer a poem, a spoken word. I was nervous this afternoon coming here, so I wrote this. It's called Mac's Got Your Back. Massachusetts Advocates for Children, the most important people in the world, children, according to Highlights magazine. Seen in your dentist office. Highlights magazine, in 50 years you can imagine what we've seen. where we've been and what we have gleaned based on who we have convened. MAC was started by Hubert Eugene. Tonight was like a time machine, if you know what I mean. It was like a series of flashbacks or historical legacy throwbacks. You see, when families have been under attack, when the world is giving them flack, when things seem way out of whack, when too many of our kids are falling through the cracks, when the systemic oppression gives us setback after setback, MAC has your back. When no one in school will give you any slack, only providing negative feedback, harsh discipline, and even talking smack. When it feels like luck is a needle in a haystack, and communities and families are in need of a comeback, MAC's got your back. For half a century, MAC has had our back. We all know in this room that MAC stands for change. Changing hearts and minds, changing perceptions, pipelines, and paradigms, changing access across all abilities, shifting cultures, and changing the very rule of law. MAC stands for change, a chance to rearrange and create an equal exchange in the landscape of education. We know that education is a right, and tonight has been dynamite. We recognize and appreciate the foresight of MAC's founders. Think about it. 5 decades of standing up for justice, equity, and love with leaders like Hubie, Jackie, Carlos, Larry, Kim, Jerry, Kevin, Maximo. Leaders who seem like they're sent from above. We know what we the people are capable of, what everyone dreams of, how folks want to be thought of. So, when push comes to shove, we know and trust that MAC will always and forever have our back. Tonight marks the official launch of MAC's 50 and Forward Fund. And I will tell you that the doors to the hotels are all locked. We want to ask you to consider carrying on MAC's legacy for the next 50 years. Because as Hubie said, as Jerry said, as Kevin said, as Kim said, as everybody up here has said, we have work to do. We have serious work to do, and this organization has a small staff and an even smaller budget. And we need your help to start Kevin off in the right way, to begin the next phase of MAC as powerfully as possible. So the 50 and Forward Fund, our goal is to raise a total of $500,000 through this fund. As of tonight, as of 15 minutes ago, we raised $323,000. Good. Tonight, and right now, we would like to add minimum $20,000 to this fund. And so here's how it's going to work. Do you have a cell phone? Anybody carrying a cell phone? I saw a lot of you on them earlier. So here's how it works. You pull up your text, and you text MAC, M-A-C 50, to this number, 414-44, with the amount of your donation. If you don't put an amount in, we're taking $5,000. So make sure you put an amount in. MAC, 414-44, the amount of your donation and your name. And you'll be directed to a page where you enter your contact number and credit card info. We also have a thermometer. Before the night started, we had already $967 raised, and actually, I'm going to come out of my pocket because someone handed me a check before they left. And we'll do this anonymous because I don't even know this person. but they pledged $500. So if you can put that into the equation. I'm going to match it personally. I'm going to go on my text right now and match it personally. For me, that's the way I calculate it, and I was not a math wizard. But I calculated, I'm looking back at 50 years, I'll do $10 a year. I'm going to ask people to start out at the $100 a year level. Is there anybody who can support tonight at the $5,000 level? $100 a year for the last 50 years. This will enable us to represent everyone who comes through Mac's doors. Excuse me, I'm getting a little tied up here. The $5,000 level represents direct case representation. There are a few lawyers in the room, I happen to know that personally, and for us, direct case representation is between $200 and $400 an hour. And our clients receive expert legal advice, free of charge, thanks to your support. If you are able to do that, that would be amazing. The next level I want to push you on is the $2,500 level. It can fund projects like our Autism Center and our Trauma and Learning Policy Initiative. For $2,500, the TPLI, TLPI, and the Autism Center. Can you show me I want to see how the thermometer is going for a second. My people at the back have been doing this wonderful thing. Tam, Scott, and Tim, and Dee. Appreciate you all. Here's how it works. You send a text to 41444, Mac, oh, we're already at $2,261. Your name also gets in there. You can do it anonymously. It's okay to do it anonymously. Thank you, David Barone. Love you. $1,000 level can support and expand our bilingual resources and community trainings for immigrant families. Thank you, whoever just jumped us up to $5,000. This level, the $1,000 level, is critical as we anticipate more work and more anti-immigrant sentiment in our society and legislation aimed at curbing people's rights. So $1,000 helps us get there. Next level is the $500 level, which I'm going to do right now. If I can figure out this technology. Let's see. We go, text. Yeah, let's go put a 414. Thank you for saying it. 414-44 dash. Yes. The dash is right after the 414. 414 dash. Okay. I would like to ask all of you to come up here and help me. I appreciate it. I do. This is don't assume the expertise in the front of the room. It's in the audience. Yes. That's working. Thank you. Thank you. We have some. This is the whole new rage in fundraising on Friday nights. It is. I just did it. Can we see our... Well, I just got to note that we have a donor that just said they will match the next $5,000 in donations. So every dollar you put in up to $5,000 will be matched. Here we go. Oh God, yes, we're doing good. Thank you. We're almost there. We're trying to bust through this. Raise your hand if you parking validated your car. We haven't. We haven't until you want it back, really. There's nothing to do with what you pledge or commit. Okay, the next level, the $250 level. supports our Racial Equity and Access Project, REAP, which Kevin just talked about. Thank you. Thank you. People are handing me money left and right. Thank you, Carlos. $250 supports the equity lens that Kevin was talking about, a collaborative project with community members to address racism in the Boston Public Schools. Finally, final level, $100. The $100 level supports our helpline. We answer literally over 1,200 calls a year, and we want to be able to be a listening ear and to be there for folks who need us and need an advocate. Here we go. $3. Give me $3. Yeah. Turn to someone next to you. Turn to someone next to you. Wish them peace. Thank them. Keep going. I want to keep going. Jerry and Kevin just say, Charlie, we're just getting started. I love that. If you haven't been able to text, there are other ways to give. You have envelopes in your programs. It is kind of lucky to be over by $11. $12. Thank you. All right. We're going to push this to 25,000, I think, and then we can rest, and then we can have that second part of the reception, and dessert, Beautiful. I'll just say this. When MAC started, it was the year that the first human being stepped on the moon. I think it was Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, and don't quote me on that, but I think it is. I think the Beatles' last public performance was in '69, and they released Abbey Road. Woodstock happened that year. I was there, don't remember anything, Kevin. It was raining like crazy. Midnight Cowboy came out that year. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Gasoline was 35 cents a gallon. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at the end of the year at 800. We're 50 years later, the Dow's way up, but not enough has changed. Let's keep going. Here we go. Thank you all, appreciate you all. Congratulations on 50 years. It's an honor to be holding the same microphone as Ruby Jones, Kevin Murray, Jerry Vogel, Carlos, and others.
Thank you all so much. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you for your support. Thank you for donating. Please continue to donate if you have not been able to. Please tell your friends and your family members and your coworkers about the incredible work that we are doing here today.
By being here tonight, each of you have made a powerful statement about your support for education and children in this Commonwealth. And we're grateful. So thank you for being here.
And just one final announcement. Please share any photos you've taken tonight and keep the conversation going online using MAC50. We'd love to see your photos. So whip out your phones, grab someone that you met today, grab someone that you came here with today, take a selfie, flip your camera, lift it up in the air, take a selfie with someone that you met today or brought here, and use the hashtag MAC50 on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Let's let people know what we're up to tonight, and please join Jackie and I tonight in the Atlantic Ballroom for dessert and a toast to MAC. Kevin, MAC staff and board members, and lots of cheesecake. We're gonna have coffee, hot cocoa. It's eagerly waiting for you in the Atlantic Ballroom. Thank you so much.
And the bar is open. The bar is open.
And that's a wrap.